When Menelaus sees the death of Patroclus, he plows through the fighting to reach the body and defend it. Euphorbus, who first hit Patroclus with a spear, is trying to strip the gear from his body. Menelaus kills the man. Then Apollo, taking on the form of Mentes, urges on Hector, who is vainly trying to capture the horses of Achilles. "Hector, you're chasing the wild wind, fiery Achilles' team. They're hard for mortal men to curb and drive, for all but Achilles, his mother, is immortal. But all the while, Menelaus, Atreus' fighting son, bestrides Patroclus. He's killed the Trojans' best. Panthu's son, Euphorbus, stopped his fury cold." So Hector turns towards the body of Patroclus. When Menelaus sees Hector, he speaks to himself. "What can I do? If I leave this splendid gear and desert Patroclus, who fell here fighting, all to redeem my honor, won't any comrade curse me, seeing me break away? But if I should take on Hector and Hector's Trojans alone in single combat, trying to save my pride, won't they encircle me, one against so many? This flashing Hector has all Troy at his back. But why debate, my friend? Why thrash things out? When you fight a man against the will of the gods, a man they have sworn to honor, then look out. A heavy wave of runes about to overwhelm you. Surely no Achaean will curse me, seeing me now, giving ground to Hector, since fighting Hector's flanked by God Almighty. Ah, if only I knew where Ajax could be found, that man with his ringing war cry. We two together would go back to the melee, calling up our fury, even fight in the teeth of every god on high, and haul the body back to Achilles, somehow. Things are bad, but that would be the best." Menelaus decides to give ground and back away from the corpse of Patroclus. Once Menelaus reaches his allies, however, he turns around and urges on Ajax to help him recover Patroclus. While the Achaeans are wheeling around, Hector strips the body of Patroclus and takes the famous armor of Achilles. He plans on hacking the head off Patroclus, but he can't as the Achaeans arrive and defend the body. Hector backs off and decides to don the armor of Achilles. "Trojans, Lycians, Dardan fighters hand to hand, now be men, my friends, call up your battle fury. I'll strap on the brave Achilles' armor, burnished armor I stripped from strong Patroclus when I killed him." When Zeus sees Hector putting the gear on, he speaks to himself. "Poor soldier, never a thought of death weighs down your spirit now. Yet death is right beside you. You don the deathless arms of a great fighter, and all other fighters tremble before him. True, but you killed his comrade, gentle, strong, and against all rights you ripped the immortal armor off his head and shoulders. So great power for the moment I will grant you to compensate for all that is to come. Never again will you return from battle, Hector, nor will Andromache take that famous armor, Achilles' deathless armor, from your hands." So Hector rejoins the battle. The Achaeans and Trojans struggle over the body of Patroclus. Back and forth the fighting rages. So on they fought like a swirl of living fire. You could not say if the sun and moon still stood secure, so dense the battle haze that engulfed the brave who stood their ground around Patroclus' body. But the other Trojans and Argive men-at-arms fought on at their ease beneath a clear blue sky, sharp brilliance of sunlight glittering round them, not a cloud in sight to shadow the earth and mountains. Men who fought at a distance worked with frequent breaks, dodging painful arrows that showered side to side. But the men who held the center suffered agonies, thanks to the haze and carnage. Ruthless bronze hacking their lines to pieces, there where the bravest fought. Yet 2 men there, famous fighters, Antilochus flanking Thrasymedes, still had not caught word of Patroclus' death. They thought the gallant soldier still alive, fighting Trojans up on the clashing front lines. But the 2 men kept their lookout, always alert to their comrades' deaths or signs of instant flight, as the 2 fought out on the flank, just as Nestor ordered, sending both sons forth for the black ships to battle. So all day long for the men of war the fighting raged, grim and grueling, relentless, drenching labor non-stop, and the knees, shins, and feet that upheld each fighter, their hands, their eyes, ran with the sweat of struggle over the great runner Achilles' steadfast aid in arms, an enormous tug of war. As when some master tanner gives his crews the hide of a huge bull for stretching, the beast's skin soaked in grease, and the men grab hold, bracing round in a broad circle, tugging, stretching hard till the skin's oils go dripping out as the grease sinks in. So many workers stretch the whole hide tough and taut. So back and forth in a cramped space they tugged, both sides dragging the corpse, in hopes rising. Trojans hoping to drag Patroclus back to Troy, Achaeans to drag him back to the hollow ships, and round him always the brutal struggle raging. Not even Ares, lasher of armies, not even Athena, watching the battle here, could scorn its fury. Not even in their most savage lust for combat, no. So tense the work of war for the men and chariot teams that Zeus stretched taut across Patroclus this one day. At one point, Zeus sees the divine horses of Achilles, mourning, longing for their driver. Automedon is trying to get them to move, but they refuse to turn back to the fighting or return to the ships. Zeus speaks to himself again. Poor creatures, why did we give you to King Peleus, a mortal doomed to death? You immortal beasts who never age or die, so you could suffer the pains of wretched men? There is nothing alive more agonized than man, of all that breathe and crawl across the earth. But Hector, at least, will never ride behind you, you and your blazoned chariot. I will never permit it. What more does he want? The arms are enough for him. Priam's son with his empty, futile boasting. But I will fill your legs and hearts with strength, so you can save Automedon, bearing him from the fighting back to the fleet. For still I will give the Trojans glory, killing all the way to the benched ships till the sun sinks and the blessed darkness sweeps across the earth. So Zeus energizes the horses. With Automedon riding in the chariot, they burst off and rejoin the fighting. Menelaus, after much hard fighting, fears that the Trojans will capture the body of Patroclus. And so he sends Antilochus to go to Achilles and tell him what happened. Achilles might be able to come and bring the body back to the ship safely, Menelaus tells him. Antilochus goes off to tell Achilles, but the Achaeans are able to get Patroclus back without him. As the Achaeans carry his body back to the ships, the battle rages on. Hector and the Trojans now have the advantage again and are pushing the Achaeans back to the trench and rampart, back to the tents and ships.